Welcome to this explainer. The source material we're diving into today paints a truly epic picture. I want you to imagine an ancient human hand, dramatically lit, slowly closing around a clump of mud, as the dry earth crumbles slightly through the fingers. Today, we're going on a massive 9,000-year journey tracing the complete history of Bharat. We are going to live this timeline together, literally starting from the very first mud brick laid in the ancient dust, all the way up to a modern nation successfully landing a rover on the south pole of the moon. Seriously, close your eyes for just a quick second. I want you to become a time traveler with me. Picture an ancient human eye reflecting the flickering flames of a newly discovered fire. Today, we're going to dive right into that fire. We're going to witness the dawn of human civilization, the rise of glorious, sprawling empires, the darkest nights of absolute destruction, and then the ultimate triumphant resurrection of an entire nation. Let's trace this journey together. Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. The sources beautifully outline this as the Phoenix Arc, and we're going to break it down into 5 distinct chapters. We'll start with the ancient foundations and civilization, move right into the Golden Age and empires, then we have to face the darkness in Great Resistance, which naturally sparks the flame of the freedom struggle, and that ultimately leads us to the flight of modern India. We're going to see exactly how this nation rose, was pushed into the ashes, and spectacularly resurrected itself. Let's kick things off. Chapter 1, Ancient Foundations and Civilization. We're jumping way back in time to roughly 7,000 BC. Now, just to put that into perspective, while much of Europe was still literally sleeping in caves, the archaeological sources reveal this incredible sheer scale of ancient genius happening in Mehrgarh, over in the region of Balochistan. Dating back 9,000 years, you guys, these people were the world's first engineers. They were building houses from baked mud bricks, they were already weaving cotton, and, this is absolutely mind-blowing, they had invented dentistry. The records actually show ancient jawbones with incredibly precise drill marks. Fast forward a bit to 3500 BC, and we see the birth of the Indus Valley civilization. We're talking about a massive empire spanning 1.5 million square kilometers. They had the waterproof Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro and these highly advanced master grid street layouts. But while Mehrgarh's secrets are mostly unearthed by now, it's so fascinating to discover that the Indus Valley leaves us with this lingering, super frustrating mystery, an ancient script that no scientist in the world has yet been able to decipher. Moving along the timeline, by 1900 BC, those massive Indus cities mysteriously faded out. But the silence didn't last long. It was soon broken by the chanting fires of the Vedic period around 1500 BC, which also brought the epic Battle of the Ten Kings. Fast forward to 600 BC, and the whole spiritual landscape shifts. Buddha finds enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, teaching a radical path of nonviolence. Yet, just a few centuries later, in 326 BC, a massive storm arrives from the west, Alexander the Great. But when he gets to the Hydaspes River, he runs into King Porus. The fierce resistance of Porus, fighting from atop his war elephant, was literally unlike anything Alexander's army had ever encountered. And that fierce spirit of resistance ushers us right into our next chapter. Chapter 2, Golden Age and Empires. The source texts highlight how this next era of triumphant expansion was born from just a single spark of pure determination. It starts with Chanakya, a relatively ordinary Brahmin walking out of the Takshashala University. He's carrying this burning fire of insult in his heart, but he has a grand, ambitious vision of a united India in his eyes. So, what does he do? He goes deep into the jungle and selects a highly talented young boy named Chandragupta. He trains him fiercely in warfare and strategy. And the result? It's incredible. The mighty Maurya Empire is born, expanding its borders for the very first time all the way to Iran. Think about that. Chanakya literally turned a personal insult into a massive geopolitical superpower. But, every empire eventually has to look in its darkest mirror. By 261 BC, Emperor Ashoka stood on the battlefield of Kalinga, and the devastation was just absolute. 100,000 dead, 150,000 taken captive. Standing there, right amidst the smoke and the circling crows, Ashoka did something completely unprecedented. He dropped his weapon. He declared that a conquering king threw away his sword right there on the battlefield. He actually kneeled before a Buddhist monk and chose a path of peace instead. And out of this profound personal transformation came the Sarnath line capital, which still proudly stands today as the national emblem of India. This newfound peace paved the way for an absolute cultural explosion, the Gupta era, a true golden age. We're not just talking about territorial conquests anymore, we're talking about a massive intellectual rebirth. The golden city of Pataliputra was absolutely thriving. The records of their metallurgical genius are astounding. Have you heard of the Iron Pillar of Delhi? It was forged over 1,600 years ago, and yet it stands out there completely rust-free today. It still baffles modern science. And then there's Nalanda University. Imagine this massive international campus hosting 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers, drawing top scholars from places like Korea, China, and Tibet. It was this incredible beacon of global knowledge. But history is a wheel, and the golden light eventually invited a terrifying darkness. Which brings us to Chapter 3, Darkness and Great Resistance. The historical records from this era show a really heartbreaking contrast. On one side, we have profound tragedy. The Somnath Temple, a deeply sacred center of faith for millions, is ruthlessly attacked by Mahmud of Ghazni. The Grand Library of Nalanda University, that beacon of knowledge we just talked about, is set on fire. And it burns for 3 continuous months, 3 months, sending countless irreplaceable ancient manuscripts into ash. But on the flip side, we see pure, unyielding defiance. Fast forward to the court of Gori, where a blinded King Prithviraj Chauhan is handed a bow. Relying entirely on the poetic cues of his companion and just the sound of his enemy's voice, he fires his legendary Shabad Pathi arrow. Even in total absolute darkness, India struck back. The accounts of sacrifice from this era are deeply emotional, and honestly, they're almost beyond what we can comprehend today. Over in Chittor, faced with a brutal invasion, 16,000 mothers dressed in their beautiful bridal attire and walked proudly, without an ounce of fear, straight into the roaring flames of Jauhar just to protect their honor. Decades later, in 1576 at Haldigati, we witnessed the immortal charge of Maharana Pratap on his blue horse Chetak. Chetak's loyalty was so profound that even with a severed leg, he leaped across a 25-foot ravine just to carry his king to safety before taking his final breath. That is the very definition of legendary loyalty. But from that very lineage of resistance comes an absolute storm in the Sahyadri Mountains. Let's look at the incredible rise of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Just imagine being 16 years old and capturing the massive Torna fort. He was a brilliant, incredibly clever tactician. When Afzal Khan tried to treacherously kill him under the fake guise of a friendly embrace, Shivaji was already steps ahead, defeating him with the concealed Wagnak or tiger claws. By 1674, at the Grand Raigad Fort, he wasn't just crowned a king, he became the Chhatrapati. He built an empire that shook the very foundations of the invaders. And that fighting spirit brings us directly into the next phase as the nation goes head-to-head with the British Empire. Chapter 4, The Flame of the Freedom Struggle. Things escalate so quickly here. In 1857, the spark really ignites when Mangal Pandey defiantly drops the new rifle cartridge and flat-out refuses to bow. Soon after, we see Rani Lakshmibai charging into battle with swords in both hands, the horse's reins clenched in her teeth, and her young son tied securely to her back. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the strategy totally shifts as Mahatma Gandhi leads thousands of everyday, ordinary people marching to the sea in the Dandi March. And ultimately, the movement witnesses the supreme sacrifice. A young Bhagat Singh, just 23 years old, walking to the gallows with a peaceful, fearless smile on his face. Now, we literally can't explore this struggle for freedom without pausing to acknowledge the horrifying human cost detailed in the historical archives. April 13, 1919, Jallianwala Bagh. It was a peaceful gathering in an enclosed garden. Suddenly, the chaotic sound of gunfire. Unarmed, innocent men, women, and children were fired upon without any warning whatsoever. The sheer tragedy and the devastating silence that followed that day became a permanent, agonizing scar on the soul of the nation. It made the resolve for independence absolutely unbreakable. But that unbreakable resolve, it finally culminated right here. On the midnight of August 14th to 15th, 1947, a brand new chapter began. The tricolor flag was slowly unfurled at the Red Fort as the massive crowd just erupted in joy. As the world slept, India awoke to life and freedom. The long, incredibly dark night of colonial rule had finally ended. Which brings us to our final exhilarating chapter, where we watch this resurrected nation take its rightful place on the global stage. Chapter 5, The Flight of Modern India. Imagine this. When the British left, India wasn't one neat, cohesive country. It was fractured into 562 separate princely states. It was the sheer brilliance and the iron will of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel that successfully merged every single one of these states, seamlessly stitching together the glowing, unified map of modern India that we recognize today.
And just look at what that unified nation has achieved since then. Let's run through modern India's breathtaking ascent. The Pokhran nuclear test sent a shockwave across the desert sand, declaring to the entire world that India would stand tall and defiant under pressure. Then we look to the sky. India literally becomes the first nation in the world to successfully land Chandrayaan-3 on the moon's south pole. Today, it proudly stands as the fifth largest economy globally. As the source material beautifully outlines, this is a country that is simultaneously building majestic ancient temples and state-of-the-art modern hospitals. It's advancing rapidly in digital India, artificial intelligence, and massive modern infrastructure.
So, we come right back to where we started. From the very first mud brick laid in Mehrgarh, all the way to planting a flag on the southern pole of the moon, this soil has endured thousands of wounds, devastating invasions, and centuries of rule. But the soul of India, the true phoenix, rose from the ashes every single time. History isn't just a textbook about what happened. It's a powerful reminder of how many times a people can stand back up to fight again. So my final question to you is this. After witnessing this unstoppable 9,000-year resilience, are you ready to carry this legacy forward into the future? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you in